Welcome to Getting to Know You, residents and staff at Stonebridge. You've heard me say that very often. Today, I'd like to amend it because I'm very pleased to say that we have an important person visiting us, but also a person who's very close to Stonebridge. So I want to welcome Anthony Argondizza, the President and Chief Executive of Spring Point Senior Living Incorporated. Is that the right title for an introduction, right?
I think it works wonderfully. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And we're so glad that you're here for our anniversary. December 10th is sort of a celebration, a holiday, and it's also sort of the first time that Stonebridge opened and had a big event together. It's, as you well know, because you were here as part of the beginning, and we're going to go back to that. But since I introduced you very formally, I think it would be good for you to just tell us, if you don't mind, what is, I was ready to say in your kingdom, but in Spring Point, SL, what's the range of the activities, the organizations that actually make it up? Because I think people don't necessarily understand that we're a very multi-purpose company or business, or
Yes.
not for profit, I think is the word.
Yes,
right?
not for profit. Yes. So Spring Point, as the parent, is a separately incorporated 501c3 not-for-profit organization. In addition to the parent, so when we say the parent, that's just a corporate word. That's the management company.
Right.
And governed by the Spring Point Board of Trustees. We also have the Spring Point Foundation, which is also separately incorporated 501c3 not-for-profit corp. We have diverse range of products and service offerings, affiliates and the like. So we have our 8
It's hard to keep it straight, I know.
we have our 8 continuing care retirement
Like
communities.
Stonebridge.
Much like Stonebridge in terms of the offer. I guess we're now calling them life plan communities.
Okay,
That's
well,
that's the new
right term.
industry term that began with Meadow Lakes in Hightstown in 1955 or 60.
With that beautiful 50s architecture.
Yes, it's 54, 55 years old.
Yeah.
And then Crestwood, Monroe was next in the late 80s, incorporated 87, 88. Crestwood followed in 89, and that was the 3 kind of legacy communities until we had the privilege of developing Stonebridge, which began in 2004, December the 10th. And then following that, through mergers and affiliations, we grew to 8 communities, the last of which merged. The Cadbury Lifestyle System merged with Spring Point 2 years ago or so, probably approaching 3. So we have 8, and in between is Winchester Gardens in Maplewood, the Oaks at Denville in Denville, New Jersey. And the Atrium at Navesink in Red Bank. So those are the 8 life plan communities. We also have an affordable housing division.
Right.
That's is made up of 19 affordable housing communities. So when you think about residents we serve, it's close to an equivalent number. So in the CCRCs, there are about 1,900 to 2,100 residents. And in the affordable housing division, in those 19 communities, there's closer to 2,300 residents. And that is solely New Jersey,
Right.
as far north as Ramsey, and far south as Galloway Township, and pretty much every county in between: Mercer, Middlesex, Ocean, Monmouth. We have 2, I guess the 2 closest to here would be East and West Windsor.
Right. Familiar with that.
And it is a very important part of the Spring Point mission. And it helps us serve a diverse socioeconomic portfolio. We call that serving our most vulnerable seniors, at least economically speaking.
Right.
And it's a wonderful division. The focus of the foundation, which in the past was primarily tailored towards fundraising to support programs
Right.
that in great part serve the life plan communities.
Right.
With buses and transportation and our chaplaincy program. And now the foundation's board externally is beginning to focus on fundraising
Right.
to support affordable housing, because they solely need it in terms of quality of life. So those are the two big
Right.
divisions.
Yeah.
Now in between, we have a home care company.
Right. That's relatively new. Right.
Yes, and that's Spring Point at Home. That serves the local communities, but by and large now it's serving primarily the CCRCs.
Right.
And lastly, we have Spring Point Choice, which is our CCRC or at-home program.
Right. The affiliated, you can live in both worlds.
Yes,
Is
yes.
that right?
So that
Yeah.
essentially makes up Spring
Yeah.
Point, the system.
Right. Let me ask you one question about the affordable housing. As you described it, is that partly through federal funding? I mean, there are a lot of communities who want to have affordable housing, but they don't know clearly how to do it or how to manage it. And is that an area where if you didn't actually do it for them, that you could be a resource and what it takes to manage those kinds of facilities, but where there is some support from government or from builder tax abatement or something?
Yes, so the affordable, by and large, it's low-income housing. There are a couple of different programs, Section 202, Section 208, and then something called the low-income tax credit, which is part of the funding mechanism. But it is reliant on federal and state funding.
Right.
So we had a significant growth in that portfolio in the late 80s, early 90s. When funding started to dry up and budgetary crisis in the state, the development of the affordable housing programs was very much sluggish.
Right.
So we would love to grow
Right.
the affordable housing division just because we have a strong history, we do it very, very well. But without funding, it doesn't work.
I just thought it would be good to docket that because it is such a need and you are a nonprofit. It's really seen as a kind of community service writ large when we say we need affordable housing. There is an organization, a business that knows how to do it.
And it's wonderful for us because as an organization, we do get a management fee for running the affordable housing division. Essentially, it covers our costs. On a balance sheet, a P&L statement, it loses money. And that's purposeful as the state sets it up that way.
Right.
So it's not a money maker. It is really purely mission based, and it's important to us, especially as a not-for-profit.
Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction to what you do and what we're all connected with here at Stonebridge in a way. Usually when we start, I will say something like, well, if you were having dinner with somebody and you were new here, they would say, well, where are you from? Or where did you grow up? Or I heard you were on a submarine once or something like that. So it was a casual introduction of saying, who are you? And so can you tell us in your biography that I read, said you got started with Spring Point, wasn't Spring Point then, in 1994, and then 10 years later, you became affiliated with the beginnings of Stonebridge. But how did you ever think this might be a good job? What got you started in this business? If you want to tell us where you grew up, you can do that too.
Sure, I'll take it all the way back and try to be concise, not one of my strong suits. I enjoy talking in the microphone, but so my family is from New York. I grew up, was born in Queens, lived in a 3-family house off of Jamaica Ave and 88th Street. Aunt Connie upstairs and Uncle Joe down, and us right in the middle. And as many families began to do back then, migrating to New Jersey and the suburbs, and going down to the shore, and so we migrated to Brick, New Jersey in 1969, the fall of 1969. My move to New Jersey coincided with the Mets winning the World Series in 1969. It was a great time.
That part of New Jersey cheers for New York.
So that's where I grew up. I still live in Brick, New Jersey. I began with Spring Point, then the Presbyterian Homes of New Jersey in November 1994. How did I get my start? It's interesting in that upon graduating from college, I went to Uppsala College in East Orange at the time, and intended on going to law school. And as things transpired, I ended up going the MBA route, and went to Fairleigh Dickinson for my master's degree in business. Right in the midst of the late 80s recession. So there I was, unemployed, plenty of student debt. We hear a lot about that now. I couldn't even afford to pay the student debt at the time, had to defer it 20 years, or defer it and then extend it to a 20-year note. And jobless. I began substitute teaching just to put gas in my tank, and
You're
did that for, well, that's a whole nother story, not much of a vehicle, but I had one. And my first job was with a institutional housekeeping and laundry company that serviced the acute care and long-term care industries. So there I was, Mr. MBA, mop in hand, stuffing laundry machines, folding personal clothing in the nursing home, and managing that side of the business. And I was lucky enough to be recruited by the owner-manager of one of my accounts, and began my assistant administrator in training track with that.
By one of the institutions, in other words.
Yes.
Okay.
It was I was trolling around in Barnegat, New Jersey, a lovely little 120-bed nursing home, managed and owned by then Seniors Management. They recruited me, and I became an administrator in the long-term care. And through an acquaintance, that she said, hey, there's this job in Ocean County with this organization named Presbyterian Homes of New Jersey. So I was slated at the time to move to Bergen County and open a brand new nursing home. And I said, well, let me take a look. It might provide me the opportunity to stay in Ocean County where I was comfortable, even though at the time I was living in Cherry Hill. And I walked into this place, I called it, which was Crestwood Manor. Now, mind you, in my world, in my introduction to senior living, it was solely nursing homes. And not like the one upstairs, and I walked into Crestwood Manor, and I thought I was in a cruise ship, and
that's what my kids think this place
smiling residents, and wonderful staff and clean and happy and service oriented. And I said, man, I hope I get this job because this would be kind of neat. And God bless, they offered me the job. I started there as the administrator of the nursing unit in November of 1994. Became their executive director in 97. And a few years later, I was promoted by the Home Office to be the vice president of CCRCs, because that really was the entire operation, with a focus on shepherding the development of Stonebridge. And here I am, 15 years later, blessed to be the president and CEO of Spring Point. So that's kind of the career track and where I grew up. I'm married, my wife Jennifer, and I have 2 children. Anthony, who is 21 and a junior at Clemson University. Go Tigers.
Wow. I know somebody else around here who's interested in that, but I
And
won't.
my daughter Gabriella is an aspiring rally cat who wants to attend Clemson University, and she'll be graduating in the spring.
That's hard to get into as a university nowadays. Jeff Teener, of course, cheers for it all
We're
the time.
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So applications are in, and that's kind of what's going on. And now just trying to get through the difficulties of the pandemic and the day-to-day life, from a home type of situation.
Right. That's a fascinating story. Thank you for being willing to take us through a great journey. A great journey. Only in America, it seems like, and also what's developed in your field. And in fact, I have a question about that. Is I thought you'd sort of end with where here we are celebrating today, which you are, and pleased with where things are. But you mentioned a change in wording to life planning. What are the challenges that you see ahead for when you think about strategic planning and so on? You don't need to go into detail, but I think it would be really interesting to know sort of what people are saying we have to watch out for, or what we want to do, because I know you're developing a new project that I guess is in the building stage. So as you think about your journey to this point, and you've been very successful, obviously being able to anticipate some changes, what are the challenges ahead? Are there financial challenges? Are there attitudes toward aging? Even is demography playing a role?
Yes.
All of those.
All of that. So, again, I'll try to be concise. I think we just ended the development of our new strategic plan. We called it the Journey to 2035. But the immediate horizon being a 3-year plan. And as I shared with our governance stakeholders, our resident trustees, and our board, the Spring Point board, and the foundation board, while we have a 3-year plan, it has to be and continue to be in the short term very nimble and very fluid, because we can think strategically all we want. At the end of the day, when I put my head on the pillow, when I wake up in the morning, my focus is on the safety of our residents and the safety of our staff, and then the communities at large, visitors and families and the like. So it's pandemic recovery and pandemic safety. Everything else will follow.
Right.
So that's our mode and our mindset behind the scenes. We're working hard and we're crafting plans and we're looking to the future, but nothing can happen until we are sure that we've safeguarded our residents and employees,
Right.
which I happen to think we're doing a fantastic job. But it's also important because the prospective residents are not going to move in at the levels we need until the world is safe.
Right.
That's the reality. So does that have a financial connection? Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you look at Stonebridge, that's historically been running at 95% census and occupancy, and now is in the mid to upper 80s, that has an impact.
Yeah.
So we are focused on the future, but our immediate priority is safety and security. Now, moving forward, what are some of the dynamics that are changing? I think healthcare continues to change. We've been hearing about healthcare reform for a handful of years. The pandemic is going to expedite the changes in healthcare reform tenfold. So that is a nervous prospect for me. What are the changes in long-term care, in Medicare, in Medicaid in terms of funding sources? And what is going to happen to that level of the continuum?
Right.
And then how does that potentially change what is offered in the life plan communities? Because there could be affiliations, there could be partnerships, there could be joint ventures. So how we serve the post-acute or subacute need may change in the future. But we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I don't think we're that far away.
And with technology
And
coming into play.
Absolutely, technology is a whole different, not problem, but significant opportunity. We would love to dive right into new technologies. Comes with a significant cost. So there's a balance, and the balance mostly comes into how quickly the technology changes. So we're very conscious of not duplicating, making sure technologies talk to one another instead of having multiple platforms. And then ensuring that we don't spend $1 million tomorrow when then 10 months later, there's a much better, solution. So there's going to be a lot to that, and we have a work group that's responsible for that, working in collaboration with residents at our life plan communities and some of the Spring Point staff. So it's a huge part of our strategic plan.
Yeah. I'm a person who is both a resident and has had experience with skilled nursing because of my husband. And I was really struck by how telemedicine was something that was so, could this really work? And so I'm involved with AARP and so on. And here it was sort of saving lives and adopted like it was the ordinary thing to do. And I thought how interesting that if you have to solve problems, you think of things very differently about how to do it. And there was the technology. That's not complicated technology, but both the physicians and the staff and even the patients adjusted to what was probably a very efficient way to treat many things that people are in need for help. And that was just in a very short period of time. I'm sure that that's something that is now old-fashioned in your thinking. Of course we do that, right? But it was sort of a breakthrough in that way. So
and technology is going to move rapidly.
Yeah.
And you're going to see a lot of solutions and implementations that affect residents and CCRCs very quickly. And adding on to what we have as a platform, slow and steady, never as quickly as our residents would like. But we are trying to be purposeful and strategic.
Yeah, it's sort of like there used to be one fax machine in a central secretarial pool long ago, and now everybody has a fax machine basically at their fingertips. And we don't even use that anymore.
Yeah, so. Off topic and just humorous at, my technology. So when I started at Crestwood, the means of communication were telephone, an actual dial telephone on your desk, and yellow notepads. And we'd write notes and letters and fold it up and put a stamp on it and send it to Princeton on Roselle Road. Wait 3 days for a response or direction. now, if my cell phone or iPad is outside of my reach, I start to have anxiety.
Yeah.
Answers and information flow is virtually immediate. So it is a very different world.
Yeah, yeah. You could put something in the mail and say, oh, it's coming, before you actually put it in the mailbox. No more of that. I want to ask you a question that sort of, I was talking with people about having the opportunity to have you on, getting to know you. And I said, well, are there any questions that you think I should ask? Not Anthony, the president. And basically, there wasn't anybody that said, yeah, ask him why we can't have an outdoor swimming pool. It wasn't a kind of self-serving thing like that. And of course, they didn't say, can we have a bocce court, because we already have one. But there was a funny kind of, what's our relationship with headquarters? And how do you see the balance between the sort of the rules and the standards that you set and what an individual CCRC can decide what it wants to do? I don't know if that's a question that takes a half hour to answer, but it's something that was obviously in people's minds, like sort of how much leeway do we have to say what we need as opposed to what headquarters says we should do or get.
Well, that is probably a topic and discussion that could take hours.
You want to come back?
But I will share with you, though, because it is asked frequently. It takes a great deal of my time and focus in terms of effective governance. But by and large, Spring Point is the management company. The board, the Spring Point board, governs the affiliates and entities. There is a Stonebridge board that's comprised of one trustee and officers of the Spring Point Corporation and 2 liaison trustees to the Spring Point board. The Spring Point board still maintains reserve powers.
Right.
We are fiduciaries, first and foremost, to protect the assets of Stonebridge and the investment of the residents. We establish strategy, trying to more and more ensuring that process is collaborative. And then the part that gets lost in the equation, again, hopefully I'll try to be quick because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
We don't establish your menu,
Okay.
your amenities you may or may not want, or even the color choice that's in the hallway. We're going to have a say, make sure it makes sense to us.
Right.
But Stonebridge, the community, governs that, which is why you have a very deep, talented resident governance association with all of your committees. That's where those decisions, now granted, if the committee says, I want a pool, and the pool costs $1 million, you may get the answer you're not looking for.
Right.
But that's the back and
Yeah,
forth.
and there'd be back and forth, right? Okay.
So I probably didn't answer the question, but I think what I try to impress when I presented the strategic plan to the resident trustees at our last meeting, the next step now, which brings that collaboration and engagement further, is that Stonebridge has to update its strategic plan. And that's on you.
Yeah.
In working with Mary and Roberto and various stakeholders, residents, and that's how you really effectuate change and improvements to quality of life and programming. Again, we're going to participate, we're going to help resource it, and we're going to be a check and balance, but it's not intended to be totalitarian and, top-down driven situation.
Right, yeah.
Where we get in trouble, I'll be honest with you, is the prevailing thinking or thought, and I don't think in some situations community leadership, that's corporate's decision.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's not that often that it is a corporate decision. It's a joint decision-making process. So I may have gotten a little bit off track there, but...
Well, it's a philosophy, basically. It's how we look at things.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that, and you obviously understand it, or have to understand it too when things come to you.
And lots of it's legal and things of that nature, policy and procedure, but we make sure that we're safe and we're secure. And I'll be honest, that's a question that's even harder for other communities.
Mm-hmm.
Stonebridge has the beauty and the benefit of having a highly functional, deep resident governance association, I'm going to call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same everywhere. They have the opportunity to, but it's not as mature and as highly functioning. And that's how it should be. It should be like Stonebridge's. Meadow Lakes does a great job with resident governance. So we're getting there, but it should be a shared governance process.
Good. Okay. Well, we can't let you go without giving you a little gift at this time of year particularly. And you may have seen this, but we thought you'd like an extra copy as a gift, or you might want to read this entirely. This is the book that the residents did about their experience in the pandemic. And I think you will be very pleased to see it from the management point of view, because there is a lot of appreciation for the staff, and the staff and the residents working together and understanding what needed to be done and responding. But then there are some wonderful, joyful, some reflecting, some regret, but basically really coming out of this being very proud of what the residents did. And Josh did most of the picture taking. There's thoughtful communication, thoughtful little essays, and the statistics based on the memos that we've received. Jeff was in charge of that. But we thought you would like to have this.
Well, thank you so much.
And I think it will make you feel like your vision and your hard work paid off as far as the pandemic is concerned, but that it also reflects what you hope CCRCs would be. So thank you so much for, and we were delighted to get to know you.
Yes, and I apologize. I hope you got through all your questions. I know I could, I enjoy talking and being engaging, but,
a variety of ways.
It was great to be here. I could story tell about the early days of Stonebridge for a whole nother session. It was interesting and entertaining. Lots of trials and tribulations, and I just end with that because it is a wonderful community today, and it's like that. We play a part, but a very small part. We try to be helpful. Stonebridge today is the community it is because the residents that have helped grow it, and the residents here today. It is trust me when I tell you, I not only have the largest portfolio in New Jersey, one of the largest in the country, but I get to travel and see and interact with other CEOs and multi-site providers. Stonebridge is a special place, and it's because of the residents that we serve here. So thank you, and thank all the residents out there in TV land.
Yeah. And thank you for staying with us for a long session. We've had about a 30-minute conversation with Anthony Argondizza. Did I say that right?
You said it perfectly.
Okay, our president and chief executive of Spring Point Senior Living. That's what SL stands for, by the way, folks. And we hope we'll have another chance to talk. Maybe we can do a kind of fireside chat
Love it.
and tell the stories of the early days of Stonebridge. How
I
about
would
that?
love it. I think the residents would enjoy it. I'd love to
Okay.
come back and
then you don't
share
have
a little bit about the history of Stonebridge instead of the history of Anthony. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Okay, and you don't have to wear a shirt and tie, and maybe we won't have to wear masks.
I hope. And thank you for
All
your
right,
support.
thank you so much.
Happy holidays.